When you start getting into high-end audio, one of the first things that comes up is DACs and amps, and pretty much anybody will tell you that. That's why today we are looking at a very, very cheap entry-level option, the Schiit Fulla 2. For $100 this thing packs quite a lot of features that I think you'll find very interesting. So the real question is this any substitute for an actual DAC and amp combo? And is it really any better than a sound card on board? The first thing to note about this is that it's USB powered. It takes a normal, right there, micro USB, 5-volt in to both provide power and data. And if it doesn't actually get enough power from that, you can hook up a second one right here to a little, wall wart, say like you got an iPhone power brick or something like that. But that's not the only thing. As you can see, there's quite a lot of plugs on here. We've got 2 on the front, quarter and a 3.5, as well as our 2 micro USBs and 2 more 3.5s on the back, and then our potentiometer on the top. Now, what makes this interesting is that we have here output from the DAC that is controlled by the potentiometer, so a volume controlled level out from the DAC that you could use to control speakers on your desk, a constant line level out from the DAC, an analog input, if you want to use a 3.5mm, as many people would say an aux cord, and then your headphone out at 1/4 inch. For me to gauge this, I had to put some pretty hard to drive headphones on. Oh, I say hard to drive. I'll grab them real quick. These are the Hi-Fi-Man HE400. Technically, they're not extremely high impedance, but they are not easy to drive headphones. I can hook these things up to my Asgard 2 and crank the volume up almost all the way, and I'm still not maxing these headphones out. Asgard 2 is a reasonably powerful amp, so I feel like that's a pretty fair test for these. Now, I did run other headphones on them, high impedance and low impedance. I ran some Rose Hybrid No. 7 IEMs, my HD700s, my HD650s, which are 300 ohm headphones, and then of course these, as well as the Grado SR80E, and no, actually I think that's it. But I think the big thing they're marketing this for is either someone looking for something kind of all around to control most of their setup with, since you can control the volume of your speakers, use it as just a regular DAC if you're going down an upgrade path, or use it as maybe an on-the-go amp, like just to plug up to your laptop if you have a short USB cable, which it does come with one, but it's a little bit long for my taste. So, does this really work as that? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Like the other small amps that I've reviewed, a good example being this one, the Bravo, when you get the volume up to about, with the Hi-Fi-Man at least, to about, I'd say, a little over half to 3/4, you start getting some weird distortion in the highs. And that's the same thing I got here with the Bravo, if you saw that review. Which, honestly, for a $100 amp, that's kind of to be expected if you ask me. But when under that level of distortion, everywhere under that 3/4 to half volume on the Hi-Fi-Man, does it still perform? Can it actually power them properly compared to normal onboard audio on a computer? And I would say reasonably so. I mean, I can obviously tell a difference when I'm using Madi and Asgard 2 versus this, but this is significantly better than my laptop's onboard audio, or even my desktop's onboard audio, and that's an MSI 970 gaming motherboard. They say they have the dedicated isolated PCB and all that stuff, and I'm not a big fan of the onboard audio on pretty much any laptop or desktop. Even MacBooks I don't think have that great of onboard audio. And this actually outputs at 24-bit 96 kilohertz, which is more than most onboard sound cards will go anyway. I mean, there are some out there that probably could outperform this. I know that Creative makes some pretty insane sound cards that go into outboard gear, but those are also significantly more expensive. This is only a $100 piece of gear, and I would say significantly more portable. The potentiometer has pretty much no noise to it. This is a solid state amp, and no matter how much you turn this thing around, it's you don't get any static or anything like that. The output level controls work pretty much phenomenally. Whenever you plug up headphones into this, it cuts off the output on the back. So if you're listening to speakers or something like that, you plug up your headphones, it cuts everything off, and you're just controlling your headphone volume, which I think is a very good feature. I did have issues with the driver sometimes where I would be listening to music and I would unplug my headphones from this, and the audio would not start going out the level controlled output on the back to my speakers until I unplugged and replugged it. But that only happened 1 out of every 5 or 6 times, so I'd say that's tolerable. And one other thing that I noticed is that this potentiometer right here, the knob on it, you probably can't see it there, but it is a textured finish, but it's still a fingerprint magnet. I don't know what it is. You can see right there, just like a little bit of grime in it. This thing is a total fingerprint magnet. It's not quite as smooth as the Asgard. It's still a very, very, very smooth pot for an amp of this price. I'm definitely pleased with it, but that was a little bit of a pain. And it does get a little bit warm, which I found surprising. Most of Schiit Audio's stuff does get warm, especially the Asgard. The Asgard, I'm going to talk about that thing one day. It's a furnace. But it does get warm. Now, there is another use for these. This does give you an upgrade path. And what I mean by that is, since this does also have a line level output that's not controlled by the potentiometer, that's just straight out from the DAC, you can take a cable, like this one, plug it in, and run the other end into a better amp. Say, for example, this one. Which, I mean, I wouldn't actually say that the knob sound in S080 is a better amp. It's just a different flavor of amp. And, you know, as you move through different amplifiers and things in the future, it's nice to have a line level DAC, you know, so you may not want to spend another $100 and get a Modi or something like that. So with that being said, you could have one of these, say run 3.5 stereo to RCA and run into, you know, a slightly nicer amp, like, you know, like a lot of people like the Little Dot. I haven't done a review of that yet, but I plan on doing it at some point. Or say a Bravo, or the Asgard, or Lear, or just who knows, you know, there's a million things out there. Or a Bottlehead. I know a lot of people love Bottleheads. I actually plan on building one at some point. I've actually got a little amp that I built here. And this is a perfect example because I built this amp for only $100 and it sounds great. I could essentially use the Fulla as a DAC for this, side by side, and it would honestly match the quality. This has got a really good built-in DAC. It does have a little bit of an interesting sound to it. It reminds me a lot of the Modi. It's kind of like the difference between the Modi and the Bifrost, if you've heard those. The way I would describe it is not necessarily bright, but it does have an odd reproduction in the highs, which isn't bad. Nothing about it is distorted or weird or anything like that. It's just, you just kind of notice it. You put them on and you think, this is something that's a little bit different here. Conclusion, is this a good enough amp for $100? And is this a substitute for, you know, a full DAC amp combo like the Asgard and Modi Magni, anything like that? I think it depends on how crazy you're getting into audio, because when it really comes down to it, no, this is not going to sound as good as an Asgard and a Modi or something like that, or, you know, a big DAC amp combo. But there are plenty of times where I was gaming or just light listening or listening on the go and say I wanted to take my HD 700s to work, and I would use this, and it would power them, and they would work just fine at medium to low levels. So is this better than onboard audio? Yes, in I'd say 99.9% of cases. And honestly, it's useful because I just plugged this up here at home. I have my speakers plugged up. If I'm gaming, I plug in my headphones. If I'm not, I just turn up the volume and it comes right out my speakers. So yeah, $100, Fulla, worth it. So guys, if you like this video, please like it. Leave a comment down below letting me know what you think about DAC amp combos. There's some really good ones out there and some really iffy ones out there. I plan on doing a review of some IEMs in the near future, as well as a lot of you guys wanted to see the HD 700, HD 650, and HiFiMan HE 400 all head to head. So that's gonna be coming in the next few weeks. I also, no, but until then guys, peace. Love for was for them busters I can't get caught up. Love for was for them busters I can't get caught up. Love for was for them busters I can't get caught up. Just no peace, no truth, it's not my dirty. Love for was for them